Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. I'm overjoyed today to read a beautiful chapter. I can't wait to read it. By Orison Swett Marden from his book, The Joys of Living, called Living Today in the Here and Now. Now, hopefully you've gotten a chance to read Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. It seems like such a simple idea, and some people are very bored by it. When you really focus on the moment now, something wonderful seems to happen. In that particular book, Eckhart Tolle finds a certain level of bliss so powerful once he enters into the moment that he can just sit around on a bench, and it doesn't matter if he is the poorest person in the world. He feels such joy that it doesn't matter. You always have what's going on in the future that you're worried about, and stuff that you had happen in the past that is pulling you down. And if you can just let that stuff go and go into the moment, into the now, something wonderful happens. In reality transurfing, there's almost an argument that you should be really thinking about the future more than the now. And there is a plausible idea that what we're experiencing in the now, we actually are not experiencing. It's already happened. But something seems to happen the closer you get to that sweet spot where the now is happening now. Our senses detect what's happened just a moment ago. But the more and more you get into the moment and slow down time, something wonderful seems to happen. Ram Dass has another wonderful book called Be Here Now. But before all of them, before Eckhart Tolle, before Ram Dass, there was Orison Swett Marden. Maybe you haven't heard of him. Check out my previous episodes. I've read some wonderful stuff by him on Expect Great Things and how to get what you want. But I found this chapter to be so spiritually uplifting, and it could have been written by Eckhart Tolle. And it's talking about the now. But there, you can talk about the now and it gets kind of boring. But when you have somebody describe the power of living in the here and now and understanding it, it changes everything. Mindfulness meditations try to achieve this recognition of the present everlasting moment. It's talked about by all great metaphysical teachers. Neville Goddard speaks about everything happening in the moment now. All of time is actually happening in the moment. And the more that we become aware of this single moment, something wonderful happens. This is a great chapter to understand it, and very motivational. Living Today in the Here and Now by Orison Swett Marden. Happy the man, and happy he alone, he who can call today his own. He who secure within can say, tomorrow do thy worst, for I have lived today. Dryden. There never was a land so dear, but found its hallelujah here. If an inhabitant of some other planet were to visit America, he would probably think that our people were all en route for something beyond, some other destination, and that where they happen to be living is merely a way station, where they unpack only such of their luggage as they need for a temporary stay. The visitor would find very few people actually living in the here and now. He would find that most people's gaze is fixed upon something beyond, something to come. They are not really settled today, do not really live in the now, but they are sure they will live tomorrow or next year, when business is better, their fortune greater, when they move into their new house, get their new furnishings, their new automobile, get rid of things that now annoy, and have everything around them to make them comfortable. Then they will be happy, but they are not really enjoying themselves today. Our eyes are so focused upon the future, upon some goal in the beyond, that we do not see the beauties and the glories all about us. Our eyes are not focused for the things near us, but those far away. We get so accustomed to living in our imagination and anticipation that we lose much of our power of enjoying the here and now. We are living for tomorrow, and yet when tomorrow comes, it will be tomorrow. We are like children chasing a rainbow. If we could only reach it, what delight! We spend our lives trading in futures, building air castles. We never believe that we have yet reached the years of our finest living, but we always feel sure that that ideal time of life is coming. Most of us are discontented, restless, nervous, and unhappy. There's a faraway look in our eyes, which shows that we are not content with today, that we are not really living here and now, that our minds are on something away beyond the present. The great majority of people think that the proper thing to do is to live almost anywhere except right here and now. Many people dwell on the past with its rich but lost opportunities, its splendid chances which they have let slip, and while they are doing this, they waste the precious present, which seems of little account to them today, but which tomorrow will begin to take on a new value in their estimation. It is astonishing what new virtues and forces we are able to see and to develop in regretful retrospection, the moment these have passed beyond our reach. What splendid opportunities stand out after they have gone by. Oh, what could we not do with them if we had them back? Happiness for many people is marred by memories of unfortunate mistakes or bitter experiences in an unhappy past. To be happy, one must learn to let go, to erase, to bury, to forget everything that is disagreeable, that calls up unpleasant memories. These things can do nothing for us but sap the very vitality which we need for correcting our mistakes and misfortunes. An old farmer was once asked at a meeting of the Agricultural Congress to give his opinion on the best slope of land for the raising of a particular kind of fruit. "It does not make so much difference," said the old man, "about the slope of the land as the slope of the man. Many a farmer who has the right slope makes a good living and gets a competence on very poor soil, while the farmer who does not slope the right way barely exists upon the richest soil. Happiness does not depend so much upon our being favorably environed as upon the slope of our mind. It is not enough to extract happiness from ideal conditions. Anyone can do that. But it is the self-mastered, the self-poised soul who can get happiness out of the most inhospitable surroundings. Paradise is here or nowhere. You must take your joy with you, or you will never find it. The trouble with us is that we expect too much from the great happenings, the unusual things, and we overlook the common flowers on the path of life, from which we might abstract sweets, comforts, delights. It is difficult for many people who are honestly striving to make the most of themselves to see how they can possibly get happiness out of their monotonous, humdrum vocations to which they are chained by necessity or on account of those who are dependent upon them. These people would get a good lesson by studying the bees, who every minute during the day of the honey season are finding sweets in every weed, in poisonous flowers, in things in which we would never think of looking for anything good. If we are ever happy, it will be because we create happiness out of our environment with all its vexations, cares, and disheartening conditions. He who does not learn to create his happiness as he goes along out of the day's work with all its trials, its antagonisms, its obstacles, with all its little annoyances, disappointments, has missed the great life secret. It is out of this daily round of duties, out of the stress and strain and strife of life, the attribution of mind with mind, disposition with disposition, out of this huckstering, buying and selling world, that we must get the honey of life, just as the bee sucks the sweetness from all sorts of flowers and weeds. The whole world is full of unworked joy mines. Everywhere we go, we find all sorts of happiness-producing material. If we only know how to extract it, everything is worth its while. If we only grasp it and its significance, half the joy of life is in little things taken on the run. The men and women who move the world must be a part of it. They must touch the life that now is and feel the thrill of the movement of civilization as the great life drama is enacted. Do you ever realize that you are now actually living the life which looked so rosy and radiant with promise in your childhood and adolescence? Do you recognize in the days and weeks as they slip by that iridescent dream of the future, which then enchanted your youthful fancy as a mirage in a desert charms the senses of the weary traveler? Do you ever stop to think that the time you are now trying to kill is the very time you once looked forward to so eagerly and which seemed then so precious, that the moments which now hang so heavily on your hands are the same that you then determined should never slip from your grasp until you had extracted from each its fullest possibilities? Why does that look like paradise to you when viewed through youth's telescope now seem but a dreary desert, because your vision is distorted? You are looking at your environment from a wrong point of view. You are disappointed, discontented, and unhappy because you did not find the fabled bag of gold at the foot of the rainbow. While you go on squandering in useless repining, the time that properly used would convert your present seeming desert into the paradise of your early dreams. Yes, here in this miserable, hampered, despicable actual wherein thou even now standest, here or nowhere, is the ideal. Work it out therefrom, and working, believe, live, be free. Fool, the ideal is in thyself. The impediment too is in thyself. Thy condition is but the stuff thou art to shape that same ideal out of. What matter whether such stuff be of this sort or that, so the form thou give it be heroic, be poetic? O thou that pinest in the imprisonment of the actual, and criest bitterly to the gods for a kingdom wherein to rule, know this truth: the thing thou seekest is already with thee. Here or nowhere couldst thou only see. You thought that when you reached the golden land of the future, fruit would fall into your lap without your preparing the ground or planting or watering the seed. You dreamed that you would reap where you did not sow. You are still looking forward, always following a mirage. You will wake up someday and discover, perhaps too late, that there is nothing in mature life for the man who will not pay the price in youth. We cannot separate our lives from time. Why is it that we are so extravagant, so thoughtless in our waste of time, especially in youth, when we cling so tenaciously to life? You cannot separate a wasted hour from the same duration of your life. If you waste your time, you must waste your life. If you improve your time, you cannot help improving your life. How few people ever see the identity between their life and time. They seem to think they can waste time in all sorts of foolish ways, and even in dissipation without wasting the life. But the two are inseparable. Remember that when you throw away an evening or a day, or do infinitely worse than throw it away by indulging in pleasures which demoralize and tend to deteriorate your character and to form vicious habits, you are deliberately flinging away a part of your very life. And that when you grow old, you would give anything to redeem the precious time you have squandered. There is only one way really to live, and that is to start out every morning with a firm resolution to get the most out of that day, to live it to the full. No matter what happens or does not happen, what comes or does not come, resolve that you will extract from every experience of the day something of good, something that will make you wiser and show you how to make fewer mistakes tomorrow. Say to yourself, "This day I begin a new life. I will forget everything in the past that caused me pain, grief, or disgrace. I once knew a mother who after death had taken away every one of her children, her husband, and nearly all her relatives, prayed that death might relieve her from her awful suffering. But after a few years she was cheerful and happy again, consoled in helping others. The world did not seem so black and life such a failure as she thought it would be. There were too many who needed her mothering. Nature is marvelously kind to us. She's a great physician. She puts the healing balm of Gilead on all our wounds and cures our mental ills in a wonderful way. If it were not for this great healing potency of nature, the world would be a funeral enough, for there are few of us who have not been borne down very close to the sorrow of death. Resolve every morning that you will get the most out of that day, not of some day in the future when you are better off, when you have a family, when your children are grown up, when you have overcome your difficulties. You never will overcome them all. You will never be able to eliminate all the things which annoy, trouble, and cause friction in your life. You will never get rid of all the little enemies of your happiness, the 101 little annoyances, but you can make the most of things as they are. The reason why our lives are so lean and poverty-stricken, so disappointing and ineffective, is because we do not really live in the day. We do not concentrate our energy, our ambition, our attention, our enthusiasm upon the day we are living. Resolve to enjoy yourself today. Enjoy today, and do not let the hideous shadows of tomorrow, the forebodings and the things you dread, rob you of what is yours today, your inalienable right to be happy today. Just have a little heart-to-heart talk with yourself every morning and say, "It does not matter what comes or what goes today, what happens or what does not happen. There is one thing of which I am sure, and that is I am going to get the most possible out of the day. I'm not going to allow anything to rob me of my happiness or of my right to live this day from beginning to end, and not merely to exist. I do not care what comes. I shall not allow any annoyance, any happening, any circumstances which may cross my path today to rob me of my peace of mind. I will not be unhappy today, no matter what occurs. I am going to enjoy the day to its full. Live the day completely. This day shall be a complete day in my life. I shall not allow the enemies of my happiness to mar it. No misfortune in the past, nothing which has happened to me in days gone by, which has been disagreeable or tragic, no enemies of my happiness or efficiency, shall be a guest in my spirit's sacred enclosure today. Only happy thoughts, joy thoughts, only the friends of my peace, comfort, happiness, and success shall find entertainment in my soul this day. None of my enemies shall gain admittance to scrawl their hideous autographs on the walls of my mind. There shall be no admittance today except to the friends of my best moods. I will tear down the black sable pictures and hang pictures of joy and gladness, of which will encourage cheer and increase my power. Everything which ever handicapped my life, which has made me uncomfortable and unhappy, shall be expelled at least for this day, so that when night comes I can say, I have lived today. A clean, new, optimistic start like this every morning will very quickly revolutionize one's outlook upon life and increase one's power tremendously. It is just a question of mastering the brain, of forming new thought tracks in the soft brain tissue, making a path for a new happiness habit. Why should you make yourself miserable by living in the past, by dwelling upon your past mistakes, regretting your failure to seize the opportunities which you think would have made you rich, or blaming yourself for things that have injured you? I have never known a person to accomplish anything worthwhile who is always lashing himself, criticizing his past, and lamenting blunders, mistakes, and other things that had already happened. It will require every bit of energy you can muster to make your life a success anyway, and you certainly cannot focus your mind on the present with the vigor that accomplishes things when you are thinking or living in the past. Every bit of force which you expend upon the things which you cannot change is not only thrown away, but you have so much less to make your future a success and so compensate for your unfortunate mistakes. Every particle of force spent in regret is worse than wasted. It does not matter how unfortunate or how black the past has been. It should and can be outlived. Haul down those black, threatening, deplorable pictures in the mind. They only discourage and incapacitate you from doing work in the present. Drop from the memory the unfortunate error of judgment. Forget the unhappy experience, no matter how much it has humiliated or handicapped you. Put your blunders out of your mind and resolve to do better in the future. Nothing is more foolish, nothing more wicked than to drag the skeletons of the past, the hideous images, the foolish deeds, the unfortunate experiences of yesterday into today's work to mar and spoil it. There are plenty of people who have been failures up to the present moment, who could do wonders in the future if they only could forget the past. If they only had the ability to cut it off, to close the door on it forever and start anew. However unfortunate your past has been, forget it. If it throws a shadow upon the present, or causes melancholy or despondency, if there is nothing in it which helps you, there is not a single reason why you should retain it in your memory, and there are 1,000 reasons why you should bury it so deeply that it can never be resurrected. One of the silliest, most inane tasks any human being is ever guilty of undertaking is that of trying to modify, to change the unchangeable. There is a strange propensity in human nature to locate all the good things of life in an existence that is yet to come to us. Man is immortal now, is not to be, but is immortal. We are perfect now in our God nature. And if we would only claim these things as ours now, instead of trying to acquire them in the future, we should grow by leaps and bounds. Happiness is something that we must take as we go along, or we lose it. When the children of Israel were passing through the desert, they were fed with manna fresh every day. Some of the people did not have faith enough to trust the Lord to feed them every day. And so they tried to store up some of this manna for future use, but it spoiled. This taught the Israelites a lesson of faith. They could not keep the manna for the future. They must trust the great giver of all good. They must have faith that He would feed them every day. Our happiness is like this manna. We must gather it anew every day we live. Everywhere we see people who have tried to store up what was intended for their daily happiness as manna for the future, but they are surprised to find that it has spoiled, evaporated, would not keep, that it must be used as we go along. We must use happiness when fresh, like fresh plucked flowers. There are a great many things, such as good impulses, which are good for today, but not for tomorrow. How many people delay the kindness, the expression of love, until the person is dead, beyond their reach, and then try to atone for a neglected past by flowers and tears at the funeral? Today is the day to say the kind word that springs to your lips, to obey the generous impulse that stirs your heart. These people who haunt your mind and whom you promise yourself that you will help sometime need your help now. And you can give it more readily now than at any other time. Every tomorrow has, in addition to its own cares and duties, all those which were neglected in the past, while its opportunities and possibilities are no greater than were those of yesterday, which makes you think that you are going to do wonderful things tomorrow, when today seems so commonplace, so void of opportunity. Why does today look so prosy, tomorrow so rosy, so poetic? What reason have you to believe that you are going to be ideally happy and harmonious, unselfish and helpful at some indefinite time in the future, when today you are irritable and selfish, uncharitable and unhappy? How is it that in some distant future you expect to get so much time to write letters to your friends and to those who are sick and discouraged, and also to devote to self-improvement, to broadening your mind, when you can find no time for these things today? What is there in tomorrow that can work such magic of improvement upon today? Why do you feel that you are going to be so generous tomorrow when you are so stingy and narrow today? Why think that you are sometime going to pick up the many things lying about the house, almost useless to you, but which would be valuable to those who are poorer than yourself? That you are going to make up a loss of cast-off clothing, books, pictures, and other things that you can spare just as well as not, and send them next week or next month to those who really need them? You have not done it in the past. Why delude yourself into thinking that you will do it in the future? How many people, not through stinginess, but from sheer thoughtlessness and ignorance of the needs of others, stow things away in cellar or attic that might help to open the way to a greater future for some poor boy or girl? Go up to your attic today, look in your trunks and about your house, and see how many things are lying around that you can not only dispense with, but which are really in your way, that would bring a measure of comfort and happiness to others less fortunate than yourself. Look over your old clothing and pick out the articles that you will never wear again, but which would prove a real godsend to some poor girls out of employment, or have so many depending upon them that they cannot afford to buy necessary clothing for themselves. Do not keep those things until they become useless, thinking you may need them sometime. Let them do good now, pass them along today. They have served your turn. Let them be messengers of good cheer, evidences of your love and thoughtfulness of others. Do not be selfish, at least with the things that you can spare. Do not hoard them, thinking that you may want them later. You can make an infinitely greater investment in your own character, in satisfaction and happiness, by giving them away than by keeping them, in anticipation of some future contingency that will never arise. You may not be as magnanimous as you ought to be. Giving will soften your heart and open a little wider the door of your generosity. There are probably books in your library or lying around the house which no one has looked in for years, or will read for years to come, which would be of inestimable value to boys and girls who are trying to educate themselves under great difficulties. Pass them on today. The more you give away, the more you will have and enjoy. The habit of stinginess strangles happiness. The habit of giving multiplies it. A highly cultured and refined woman not long ago told me of her struggles to get a musical education. She was so poor that for a long time she could not afford to hire any kind of an instrument and used to practice for hours daily on a piano keyboard which she had marked on a sheet of brown paper. While struggling to get along in this way, she invited to a dinner at the home of a wealthy family. After dinner, she was shown over the house by her hostess, who took her from kitchen to attic. And there, says the lady, in the attic, I saw stored away an old piano, which I would have given anything I had in the world to possess. I would have been glad to have walked a long distance every day for the privilege of practicing on it. I cared nothing for the sumptuous dinner, the handsome furniture, the beautiful pictures, and evidence of luxury on every hand. But that old piano lying unused in the attic haunted me. It would have opened the door to paradise for me, yet I dared not ask for it. There are hundreds of poor girls in this country struggling to get a musical education today who cannot afford any kind of a piano. Why not give your superfluous piano or organ to some struggler? No one is so poor that he cannot give something to enrich another every day of his life. He who hoards his joys to make them more is like the man who said, I will keep my grain from mice and birds, and neither the ground nor the mill shall have it. What fools are they who throw away upon the earth whole handfuls? Give, give, give now today. Help yourself to grow larger, broader, happier, more useful to humanity as the years go by. Many a man defers his happiness until he gets rich. Then he is surprised to find that his manna is spoiled, that he should have eaten it when it was first given. Deferred happiness and the deferred good deed do not keep. Everyone should start out with a tacit understanding with himself that whatever comes to him or does not come, that whatever he is successful in his particular undertaking or unsuccessful, he will at least be happy as he goes along, that he will not allow anything to rob him of the enjoyment which ought to come to everyone each day. He should resolve that he will not allow any little accident or incident or any conditions, however trying, to interrupt the natural flow of his sense of well-being, comfort, and happiness. Remember that yesterday is dead. Tomorrow is not yet born. The only time that belongs to you is the passing moment. One might liken the 60 minutes in the hour to flowers that live for only 60 seconds and then die. If we get the good that belongs to us here and now, we must extract the sweetness of each passing minute while it is ours. That is the real art of living in the today. And that is the beautiful chapter by Orison Swett Marden on living today. And I really enjoyed reading it. It's very motivational. There's a lot of great points that he's making. A lot of people out there, if they go back to when they were kids and imagined where they're at now, they would be so joyously happy. When I was reading that, I was like, yeah, he's right. When I was a kid, if I imagined how I have it now, I would be jumping for joy, but I take it for granted. And I'm looking ahead into the future as if that something is better. The great secret is that if you're happy now, you will be happier in the future. The teaching from Neville Goddard is so powerful. He's saying when you imagine something that you want to create in your future, in your reality, you imagine it happening now. You don't imagine it happening in the future. It only happens in the now. You imagine for the now, everything happens in the now. Are you living in your future, or are you living in your past? It's possible to do both, and at the same time, which is a double whammy. I have been stuck in many situations because of a past that I regretted and felt horrible about, mistakes I had made, and accidents, and all kinds of hopes that were lost. And I've wallowed for years at a time because of things that had happened in the past that told me I couldn't do the things I wanted to do in the future. And I'm telling you, whatever it is that you did in your past, just forget about it. It doesn't matter. It's over. You have today, right now, and you can do anything you want. Anything is possible. But we live in our past and our future, and that takes away all the possibilities of what we can have. And by living in this moment, you create better moments in the future. It's true. Once you tap into the eternal present now, there's a bliss that can overcome you that is so amazing that Eckhart Tolle talks about, that you don't even have to do anything ever. It's truly wonderful. I know exactly what he's talking about. I have felt this to where I could just sit on a bench and I could just sit in that eternal bliss of the moment. You can find it through mindfulness meditations. I have a mindfulness meditation on the channel, which for many people, they're able to access the moment by becoming mindful. But some people don't find that momentary joy. It's a constant reminder. I've had times when I've set an alarm, so every 30 minutes it would remind me to get into the moment. I've even done it for 5 minutes. I've had a flash on my screen that says get into the moment. There is something about reminding you to get into the moment. The more and more you stay in the moment, look at what's happening now, go outside, listen to the sound of the traffic, the birds, to the wind. Think about what's happening now. Notice what's happening now. The joy that you want to find is in the now. You are not going to be worried about all that stuff. You're not going to be depressed about all this stuff if you can let all of it go and live in the now. Everything is going to be okay as long as you remain in the now. And an important lesson is given in this, to trust the ever-giving source of God in the moment. The manna that they put away and hid, they tried to hoard. It spoiled. I've talked about this a couple times on my channel now. The first time was How to Attract Money by Dr. Joseph Murphy. He gives a story of a woman who hoards coffee in the war because she's worried she's going to run out of it. And as she's going to church, they steal a bunch of stuff in her house and they steal all the coffee. And she said, why did I deserve this? But she had hoarded. She had sent out that signal of lack in the moment. So when you hoard for the future, which is what you're doing when you hoard, you're thinking about the future, then what happens is you lose those things. They spoil, they go away from you because you're not in the moment now. The other important part of this chapter, which I'm a big believer in, but it's hard for me, somebody that owns a bookstore like myself. I have so many books that I want to get rid of, but I love them so much and I hold on to them and I try to observe them, but I know I shouldn't have 6 or 7 rooms full of books. I always wanted to have a library someday, but yeah, I'm going to probably have to get rid of some books. And as I started to get rid of other stuff, I noticed it was a huge moment for my life. And it was enabling my manifestations to happen faster. In fact, if you're struggling right now, just clean up the house. Throw away some stuff. Get rid of some stuff. The more stuff you get rid of. Now, here's the thing to think about. All that stuff you have in your house, you are connected to. It is connected. It is your energy. It may be in a drawer in another room. It might be in a garage or attic, but it's still somewhere in your mind. You know where it's at. And it's a connection. So there's something that happens when you get rid of all your stuff. It's a freeing feeling, and there's a sudden jolt of energy that you get from all the energy that you were slowly expending each day on all that stuff. When I say something wonderful is happening in my meditation, I'm saying something wonderful is happening now. Something amazing is happening to you now. Focus on the now, and you'll find the awesome. It's just a good reminder. It's a simple teaching. But we are immortal and eternal in this moment. This moment never ends. That's where our immortality exists. So find the now. All episodes of The Reality Revolution can be found at therealityrevolution.com. Buy a copy of my book, The Reality Revolution, the mind-blowing movement to hack your reality. I really loved writing that book, and if you want to explore traveling through parallel realities, then give it a shot. I love you all so much. Sending out waves of joy and love in this present moment. And whenever you're listening to this, it's the same moment. Welcome to the Reality Revolution.